So we are going further today, and in this chapter, which title is, I don't remember. I'm lost in my own lectures. It's very good. Chapter 1, Nature and Law. So we had a first section which was dedicated to human law deriving from the natural law. And in this chapter, we dealt with Heraclitus of Ephesus and some other thinkers. And now we have a second section in this chapter, which will be dedicated to other thinkers who are opposing law and nature. Section 2, law opposed to nature. And we are going to come back to the Sophists. I spoke you a few words about the Sophists previously in the general introduction, and I wanted to expound on them more now. So these are people who were important in the 5th century before Christus. So I remind you that in the 5th century before Christus, Athens was a very important center, cultural center, and since the Greek cities won the war against the Persians, Darius and Xerxes, they won the wars, and then the people were not busy with war; they were busy with individual success. That's what was important in the 5th century before Christus. So the sense of belonging to a community was a little lost. Everyone aimed to its individual success. And it is in this situation that the Sophists appeared in Athens, and they were giving lectures against money. They were selling their knowledge against money, and they were teaching the citizens how to succeed in the social community. Of course, when I'm speaking about citizens in Athens, I don't speak about the farmers or the traders or people who had to earn their life, but I'm speaking about people who have enough money not to work to earn this money. So they have leisures. They had time to study, and they wanted to be instructed. They wanted to have lessons on how to succeed politically and succeed socially. So there was a need of people who could teach these citizens the keys of the success. And these were the Sophists. So one must not think that all the citizens of Athens were following the lectures of the Sophists. It was only a little elite who was interested in it. Now, Sophistes, as I told you before, derives from another very common word in Greek, which is Sophia. Sophia, it means wisdom, but it means also knowledge. And skill, it has several meanings, like nomos, we told you about nomos last week, or logos. These are words which have several meanings in Greek language. And this is just the same for Sophia. Sophia has several meanings. It can mean science, it can mean wisdom, but it can mean just simply skill. And sophos, which is an adjective which is derived from Sophia. Sophos, which is an adjective derived from Sophia, can mean somebody who is wise, but it can refers to somebody who is who has knowledge, or more generally speaking, to somebody who has some skill. So it has a broad and Sophists. This is a name which is derived from Sophos. And Sophistes, this is the man who is Sophos. Now, you understand that Sophos and Sophistes have broad meanings. But in the 5th century before Christus, it was employed, it was used in a more in a narrower sense, in a narrower meaning. It was used to describe these people who pretend to sell their knowledge against money, who were called Sophistes. Now, the Sophistes in the 5th century before Christus, they had rather a good reputation. They were regarded as people who are clever, who are skilled, who have knowledge, and many people wanted to follow their lectures and pay to them. It's only afterwards, with Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Isocrates, all these thinkers, they criticized so much the Sophistes, then the Sophistes were left with a very bad reputation they had to bear during centuries. Now, after Socrates appeared, after Plato and Aristotle wrote their works, the Sophists were left with a very bad reputation, with people who are not fond of knowledge, but only able to speak and to hold not to think, but only to persuade, to convince the others without regard to the truth. This is the reputation the Sophists acquired because of Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, and Isocrates. Now, later, in the 19th century, Hegel and other thinkers rehabilitated the Sophists and presented them as real thinkers and not as people who wanted only who were dealing only with appearance. So the Sophists were rehabilitated in the 19th century. And until the 19th century, they were regarded as people who are not worth of philosophy, who must be who cannot be trusted, and whose way of reasoning is just artificial. Now, what is true in the reputation the Sophists have got, it is that the Sophists are not looking for the truth by itself. We are not looking for the truth by itself. If we come back to Heraclitus of Ephesus, we have seen that justice, according to him, is linked with truth, and justice is linked with truth, and law, right, is linked with truth. The question is only what is truth? Everything is moving, is changing, and you must find something which remains. And this something which remains is the logos on which the human law is founded. Now, with the Sophists, there is no more link between truth and justice, because the Sophists don't think it's possible to reach a truth, and that it's not possible to reach the justice by itself. There is not something like justice by itself. So it's true that they are dealing only with appearance. So if we take, we quote once again a very famous sentence of Protagoras. Protagoras was one of the main Sophists. He was about 20 years elder than Socrates. And he went from a Greek city which is called Abdera, and he came to Athens, like other Sophists. The Sophists were coming to Athens because they wanted to earn money, and the money was in Athens. So if they wanted to have disciples who will pay them, they had to come to Athens. So Protagoras wrote a very famous sentence, which is located at the very beginning of his book. His book is lost. His book had a title of Truth. The title of the book was Truth, but the very first sentence of his book was the following: man is the measure of all things. Man is the measure of all things, of those that are as they are, of those that are not as they are not. Man is the measure of all things, of those that are as they are, of those that are not as they are not. So let's try to simplify the meaning of this sentence. Obviously, the global meanings, it is that the things are not by themselves, but only related to the man who perceives them. So, for instance, if you have wind, I can feel the wind cold. You can feel it hot. And somebody else could say it's neither hot nor warm, no cold. It's just between the two. So everybody is right. There is no truth by itself. There are no such things by themselves. There is only a truth related to the man who perceives something. And what I say, I give the example of the wind, but of course I can give the example of justice. It's the same. Justice is not, there is no justice by itself. There is not a justice as a truth. There is justice as I I have an opinion about justice. You can have another opinion about justice, and everybody has his opinion about justice, and everybody is right. As a matter of fact, well, I come back to the sentence. Man is the measure of all things, of those that are as they are, of those that are not as they are not. So there is no truth by itself. It depends on the man. And then the man is the criterion, the measure of all things, of the existence of things which exist, and of the non-existence of things which don't exist. Man is a measure of all things, of those that are as they are, of those that are not as they are not. Now, as a matter of fact, the meaning of the sentence was discussed among the scholars, because Protagoras wrote this sentence, but he didn't define the man. So there was some discussions in the 19th century, especially, about the sense, the meaning of man. But some scholars said, well, maybe the man of who Protagoras is speaking, it is the man in general. And other scholars says, no, this is the man is an individual. But the meaning of the sentence depends on what meaning you give to man. If the man is the man in generally speaking, it would have meant that Protagoras wanted to say that human knowledge is limited to what a man in general perceives. So there are no human knowledge who can go beyond experience. Human knowledge is limited to phenomena. This is a first interpretation. That would have meant that Protagoras was the thought of Protagoras' thought would foreshadow Kant's thought. Maybe I told you in the general introduction that Kant, he pretend that we cannot know things which are beyond experience. It's impossible. The power of the reason is limited to the phenomena. The things by itself, which Kant calls noumena, we cannot know them. We can know only the things which are under experience. That's why Kant explained we cannot know God. We can think of God, but we cannot know him because he is not a phenomena. He's beyond experience. So we could thought it's possible that Protagoras would have spoken about the man in general, and in this way he would have foreshadowed Kant. So the human knowledge is limited to phenomena. And the scholars who pretend that that was the meaning of Protagoras' sentence said this Protagoras sentence must be related to another very famous Protagoras sentence. There is another sentence in which he says about the gods, I cannot tell anything. About the gods, I cannot tell anything. Neither if they are, nor how they are. So he was agnostic. He didn't say that the gods don't exist, but he said he couldn't say something about gods. He couldn't confirm that the gods exist, and he couldn't say how they are, because his knowledge was limited to what he feels. His knowledge was limited to the senses. This is the first interpretation of Protagoras' thought, but the second interpretation, which is the most broaded interpretation, the interpretation which is regarded as the most accurate, is to say that the man in the Protagoras sentence, this is the individual. And that Protagoras wanted to mean, it is that everybody has its truth. There is not a truth by itself, it depends on everybody. And as a proof that it is the real meaning of a sentence, we can quote Plato and Aristotle, because this is the way they understood the sentence. There is a famous dialogue of Plato, which title is Theaetetus. This is a dialogue about science. And in this dialogue, Socrates is discussing about the meaning of Protagoras' sentence, man is the measure of all things. And Socrates understands this sentence in the following manner. As the things seem to me, as they are for me, as they appear to you, so they are to you. So this is relativism. The things are depending to the individual subject. There are no things by itself. There are no truth by itself. There are no justice by itself. There is no justice by itself. There is only a truth which depends on the subject, on the individual. And this is the way Plato, by Socrates' voice, understood this sentence. And this is the way most of the scholars understand this sentence. So if there is no meaning by itself, there is no truth by itself, what is important in life? So if we must give up any search of the truth, what is important? So the first thing which is important for Protagoras and other sophists like Gorgias, it is the speech, the discourse. On one topic, you can have several speeches, several discourse, and no discourse is false. All the discourse are exact, are accurate, because there are no things by itself. So it means that what is important is to speak well about something, to convince the others. The important is not to be to tell a truth which doesn't exist by itself. What is important is to convince the others with a speech, with a discourse. And this is what the Sophists pretended, Protagoras, and also Gorgias. Gorgias was another very famous Sophist, which has reputed because of his art of the discourse, of rhetoric, said the Greeks. That was rhetoric. So this is a very modern way of thinking, understand? Because now, if we look for the politics now, these last days, we can see what rhetoric is used instead of truth. When Mr. Trump says, President Trump says that Zelensky should not be president because there is no election in Ukraine, it should be elections, in despite of the fact that the Ukrainian constitution says there cannot be elections during time of wars. He knows perfectly how he's a cretin. It may be he's a cretin, yes. That what he's saying is not according to the truth. When he says that the United States helped more Ukraine than the European, this is against the truth. But it doesn't matter, he speaks. He speaks not regarding to the truth, but regarding how to convince the people who are listening to him. This is the way he won the American elections. And behind him, you have his vice president, G. Vance, who is who wants to be to run for presidential election in 2028. So he has to lick Trump's ass until this date, because if he doesn't, Trump won't back him in 2028. So now it's becoming a little difficult for this Vance, because if he's supporting too closely Trump, and if Trump has trouble, Vance will have trouble also too. But in another way, he cannot depart himself from Trump, because he's waiting for Trump support in 2028. So he's also telling lies, speaking to the Europeans as we were children. And so I don't know if they know the truth. Maybe they are so stupid that they don't know even the truth. Or if they are not stupid, they are just saying anything which can convince the people who are listening to them, not regarding the truth. No, you can see that the way the Sophists said we have to speak was very important. For the Sophists, only the discourse, the speeches were important. And on the same topic, you could support different points of view. And what was important, it was to convince the people. As Gorgias explained to Socrates in a famous Plato's dialogue, which title is Gorgias. So in the dialogue, in the Gorgias, Socrates visits Gorgias, and of course, around Gorgias, they are full of people who are admiring this Gorgias, like the people who are around Trump, you see. And Socrates asked Gorgias, what is your talent? How you have so many admirers, so many people who are wanted to follow your lectures. So what is your art? Why are you so famous? Why are you so rich? Because he earned a lot of money. And Gorgias answers, I'm teaching rhetoric. And rhetoric, sorry. And rhetoric, this is a wonderful art, a wonderful technique, because with the help of rhetoric, you can convince anybody of anything. For instance, says Gorgias, if you are in a public assembly and you have to speak about medicine, the one who is skilled in rhetoric will convince the assembly about something without regarding if he knows himself in medicine. It doesn't matter. So this is a marvelous technique, because it allows the one who is possessing it to have superiority even over people who knows. Now, says Gorgias, of course, somebody could use rhetoric in a bad way. He could use rhetoric to make something wrong, like Trump. He's not giving the example of Trump, but Gorgias said, this is not my responsibility. I won't carry responsibility for this, because I'm just like a boxing trainer. I'm teaching a way of wrestling. So now, if my scholar, my disciple goes in the street and quarrel with somebody and beat him, this is not my responsibility. I'm giving him the way to defend himself and to the attack, but he must use it in a good way. It's not my fault if he uses it in a bad way. And so what happened in this dialogue is Socrates asks Gorgias, now you are speaking, you are telling that rhetoric is the art of speaking of anything without knowing it. So when you speak about justice, at first Socrates says, but what is the main topic of rhetoric? And Gorgias answers, it is justice. So Socrates says, so what you mean that it is you can learn your disciple how to speak about justice without knowing it. And Gorgias would not acknowledge this. So he was afraid to go until the last limit of his speech, and he says, no, if I teach my scholars, my disciples to speak about justice, it means I know something about justice. So he was afraid of the consequences to say, no, I don't know anything about justice, and I don't want to have anything, because justice was the golden rule in the Greek society. So he says, no, I couldn't teach my scholars to speak about justice if I didn't know something about justice. So it doesn't go to the last limit of his thesis. Now, even if Gorgias was afraid to go to the last limit, it has serious consequences on the field of law and the field of right, what he is saying, like Protagoras. Now, if we leave the general aspect of sophist thought and we come to justice and law. So we have understood, with Protagoras, that everybody has its own truth. There is no truth by itself. We have learned from Protagoras and Gorgias that the speech is what is important. what is important is not the substance of the object. It is not the truth by itself, the justice by itself. It's about what is important is the speech. So now, if we go on the field of the right and on the law, what does it mean? Well, the sophists, in contrary to Heraclitus or the Stoics, they oppose law on the one hand and nature on the other hand. So they use Greek terms. Maybe I wrote them before. Nomos, this is law, but it has several meanings. As I told you before, I'm getting back to this problem in some minutes. And nomos, this is law, physis, physique, this is nature. Now, what the sophists, they are not, it's not a school, you understand? It's some individuals which are in rivalry one to another. Protagoras wants to be the first, Gorgias wants to be the first, and so on. So, but even if it's not a school, they share some views. And one of these views they all share, it is the view that they oppose nature and law. And we have several examples of various sophists who says that law and nature are in opposition. One of the most famous written speech, papyrus, about the question, it is some sentence from a sophist whose name was Antiphon. And this Antiphon wrote some sentence about laws which were discovered, I guess, in the beginning of the 20th century on the papyrus from Oxyrhynchos. Oxyrhynchos, this is a city in Greek. Yeah. I don't remember even how Oxyrhynchos is written, so I'm not going to write it. It doesn't matter. This is just a city, and it's called the papyrus from Oxyrhynchos, but because it was discovered there. And Antiphon wrote a few sentences in which he sums up sophistic views about law and nature. And what he wrote in this sentence, it is that he begins his speech, by saying that what is justice, it is what is legal. So he says that justice, it is what is legal. So he means that justice is not something else than lawfulness. He starts like with this view. And then he says, there is therefore an opposition between nature and law. Because law depends from who is edicting the law, from the lawgiver, the lawmaker, sorry. The law is just a decision, something which is decided by a law maker. Law is just a convention, he writes. It is a convention. While nature is by itself. Nature is not created by the will of somebody. Nature is by itself. Law is accident. Nature is necessary. Law is accident because it can be this way or another way. It depends on the will of the guy, the lawmaker, who makes the law. The law can be like this and can be otherwise another day. It depends on the will of the lawmaker. Nature is always necessary and doesn't change. It doesn't depend on the will of somebody. So there is an opposition between law, which is a human invention, an artificial work, something which is arbitrary, depends on the will of something. There's an opposition between law and nature, but because nature is by itself, it doesn't depend on human will. So there are two orders, the order of nature and the order of the law. And these two orders are in conflict one with each other, one with the other. They are in conflict because very often, says Antiphon, the prescriptions of the law are opposed to the prescription of nature. The prescription of the law are opposed to nature. Sorry, prescription of nature doesn't mean anything. So I explain you, because in this fragment, Antiphon doesn't oppose natural law and human law. This is not the topic of this fragment. He's opposing nature to human law. In this fragment, Antiphon doesn't use the expression natural law. He uses only the expression nature. And he says nature and law are in opposition one to the other. Law is only artificial creation. It depends on human judgment and will, while nature is always by itself. So it doesn't speak about a law of nature. If he would have spoken about a law of nature, he would have acknowledged that it is possible to break this law of nature. Because if you have a law, you can have exception to the law. If it was only a law of nature, you could break it by a civil law. But this is not what he's saying. He's saying that nature is always the same. Nature is by itself. You cannot break nature. While human law depends on the will of the judgment of the lawmaker, and then you can break human law, because, explains Antiphon, if you are breaking the law and nobody sees it, you remain hidden and you break the law. There is no consequence. There are no consequences. For instance, if you steal, this is not an example from Antiphon, but for instance, if you steal my handy is my smartphone here, and nobody sees you. It's okay, there's no problem. There is a problem only if you are discovered. So human law must be respected if you are witnessed. If there are witnesses of what you are doing, you have to respect the human law. But if there is no witness, you can do what you want. He explains. Nevertheless, when it's about nature, it's not possible. If you want to break nature, it's not possible because it doesn't matter if you make it, if you do it in front of witnesses or hidden. It doesn't change. If you break the nature, you break the nature. The consequences are the same. Either you are witnessed by somebody, either you are not witnessed. So there is an important difference between law and nature, because law must be respected only in front of witnesses. If there is no witness, you can do what you want. But nature, this is not like this, because nature, this is necessity. And either you are witnessed by somebody else, or you are not witnessed, the result is the same. You are going against nature, and you cannot go against nature. So this is a very important speech about antiphon. I don't know if it's on Agorasas. I can put it if you want. I have to find somewhere the translation in English. But one must be aware of the translation of the speech, because often we see in French translations. I didn't read the English translation, but often in the French translation we see in this speech the prescription of nature. And there are no prescription of nature in these speeches. He speaks about nature because if he would have spoken about the prescription of nature, it would have meant that he was speaking about a law of nature. But he doesn't speak about a law of nature. There is only one law, according to Antiphon. This is the human law. Nature is something else. Nature is necessity. And law depends on human will and human judgment. So they are in opposition one to the other, very often, he says. And he doesn't say how the opposition must be solved. He's not speaking about this. He just state, it is a statement. It is a statement that there is nature on the one hand, human law on the other hand, and they are in conflict one to the other. This is just a statement. This is not a judgment. This is not a critique from the human to the human law or to nature. This is just a statement. But this is very important because it implies that the human law has no support in nature. Human law is only what the lawmaker wants a human law to be. And so justice is just what the lawmaker orders and nothing else. This is the first path to positivism. Now, positivism, this is a word which would appear only in the 19th century, after Christus. But you can see with the Sophists, with this speech of Antiphon the Sophist, that positivism had its roots in the Greek thinkers of the 5th century before Christus. This was the beginning of positivism. Of course, the Sophists, they didn't say, well, we are positivists. That was not like this. because positivists didn't exist. But they founded the path to the modern thought about positivism. The roots are here in the 5th century before Christus with the Sophists. And now we are going to take 10-minute breaks, and then we are speaking more about the Sophists. Have you understood or not? Understand or have you understood or not? Yes, okay.
Jullie zijn ook door, dus we zijn. Nou, ik zet er blij uit. Nederlands. Ik ben blij. Ja, ben ik ook blij. Dat zijn we door zijn. Volgende spits van dat weet ik niet. Nou, weet ik ook niet. Ik wil meteen nog volgen. Ik weet het eindelijk mooi maken. Ja, ik was fan van de zaal. Ah, ik weet het helemaal ben hem dus ook gaan doen. Ja.
Now, what? Now, from this opposition to between nature and law, the Sophists link this opposition between nature and law to their relativism. The relativism I spoke about when I remind you the sentence of Protagoras: "The man is the measure of all things." So, if the law is something artificial, it depends on the lawmaker. It's only the result of the will and the judgment of the lawmaker. And if, on the other hand, there is no truth by itself, but truth is specific to each man. Man is the measure of all things. It means that the man is also the measure of justice. So justice is just the conception of a lawmaker, and what is just today can be unjust tomorrow. This is nothing else than positivism. And as a matter of fact, the word nomos by itself called for such an analysis of the law. Because nomos, I told you before, I guess, has several meanings. Nomos in Greek, you think, of course, of law when you hear the word nomos. But nomos has other meanings. It is an equivocal word because it can mean rule imposed from an authority, moral or religious. It can mean a custom or convention. And we have spoken before with Sophocles' Antigone that there is a possible conflict between the law imposed by a moral authority, by God, and the law effective in the city, because what Antigone supports what Antigone pretends, it is that the laws of God, which are universal and eternal, must prevail against the decrees, the individual decisions, and broadly speaking, the laws of the city. So, as nomos can design a law imposed by a moral or a religious authority on one hand, and can design a custom or a convention or an effective prescription on the other hand, there can be a conflict between the two. And this we saw when we spoke about Héraclite d'Éphèse, and we spent a few minutes explaining the thesis of Antigone. Now, nomos has another meaning, a more remote meaning. It is opinion. Nomos, it's also a way of thinking, an opinion. How we say, a deme, sorry. It means an opinion about somebody. There is a verb which is derived from nomos. It is nomizein in Greek, nomizein. And nomizein in Greek, it means to deem, to believe, if you like better. To deem, it is to estimate, consider something, to believe. So it means that nomos is not the result of the truth. It is the result, the effect of the way somebody thinks. Nomizei. He thinks some way, nomizei, and he make a law which express the way he's thinking, which express rather what he believes, what he deems. But tomorrow, somebody else who would become a lawmaker can believe something else. 3 months ago, the president of the United States believed in Ukraine today, and in OTAN, in NATO, and today we have a president of the United States who is our enemy. And this is the way how things are changing. There is nothing unchanged, they are just opinions. The truth is Biden's one day, and it is Trump's once the other day. This is the danger of this conception. If you have no value by itself, you have no truth by itself, it's just a matter of opinions in law and in politics. But politics is linked to law. International relations are linked to law, except in Trump's fault, or in Vance's fault, Vance's fault. Or in Putin's fault, of course. Now, it doesn't mean that the Sophists thought the content of the law didn't matter. This was not the position of the traditional Sophists, like Protagoras, for instance. Protagoras doesn't say that the content of the law doesn't matter, that the law is just the consequences of the lawmaker, what decides the lawmaker. Because if we come back to this dialogue theetetus, I spoke to you about, Plato's dialogue, well, Protagoras is not in this dialogue because he was dead. There is somebody, yes, he was 20 years elder than Socrates and he was dead. But there is somebody in this dialogue which defends Protagoras' theory. And this is the one who says man is the measure of all things. And so Socrates says there is a problem with this sentence. Man is the measure of all things, of the things which are as they are, and of the things which are not as they are not. There is a problem, he says, because well, Protagoras is a famous teacher. He earns a lot of money because he's supposed to have to be wise, to have wisdom. But if the truth is only what an individual thinks, if there are no truth by itself, but truth for everybody, how can Protagoras present himself as somebody wise who can earn money by teaching something? Socrates adds, well, it's just like I spoke to you about the baboon. He gives the example of a monkey, Socrates. This monkey, the scientific name, it is which is used in the Greek text. This is cynocephalus. It means dog-headed baboon because they have a long nose like a dog. You know, this is these monkeys who are living in groups in zoos, and they are looking for bananas or things like that. And you know them. Yeah, you have seen them in zoo, no? They are making love publicly and all these things. Now, the real scientific name is cynocephalus, but there was a problem in 18th century. There was a French scientist whose name was Buffon, and this Buffon, he made an inquiry about monkeys. So he wanted to classify the species of monkey, and it happened that Buffon knew a guy who he didn't like, whose name was baboon. So because he didn't like this man, he gave the name to this monkey, baboon. It's true. That's why this dog-faced baboon, that's remind this name, we say babouin in French, it reminds, but it's not the scientific name, it's just a name given by Buffon because he wanted to take revenge from this guy Babouin, who he didn't like. No. Now, returning to Plato's dialogue, Socrates says, well, I don't know, because if truth is each man's truth, we could say either that truth is the dog-faced baboon truth. How can explain me to Protagoras? Can somebody explain me how Protagoras can pretend to be wiser as a dog-faced baboon? Because if everybody has its truth, maybe the baboon has also its truth. So Protagoras cannot answer because he's dead. So Socrates suggests he's going to give the answer Protagoras would have given if he was still alive. So Protagoras acts as he was Protagoras, and he gives Protagoras' reply. And Protagoras, of course, he was somebody who was very rather self-conceited. All these Sophists, they are self-conceited, you know. Gorgias, Protagoras, they are like a low professor, you know. You know, they have people who admire them, they are around them, and they listen to what they are saying with very, very. So it's like this. So Protagoras replies. So Socrates makes imagines that Protagoras will reply, and Protagoras will reply, well, Socrates, you are very very bad educated to compare me to Babon. This is not the topic. This is not the point. Of course I'm wiser as a baboon, and I'm wiser as the other man, because it's right. You are right when you are saying that there is no truth. There is no truth because man is the measure of all things. It means everybody has its truth. This is right. But it doesn't mean there is no wisdom. This is another problem. There can be a truth, there can be a wisdom without truth. And this is why the Sophists are so important. And this is why the Sophists are legitimated to earn money. Because even if there is no truth by itself, there is a wisdom. And this wisdom, the Sophists are teaching to the others. And that's why they earn money and they are wealthy. So it gives, that's very important from the point of philosophy of law, in the speech, which Protagoras didn't give, but Socrates gives instead Protagoras. Protagoras says, well, the Sophists, they are like, look in the city, for instance. In the city, there are laws. And justice is nothing else than the law which is enforced. Okay? But where are the Sophists important? They can persuade, they can convince the lawmaker to prescribe laws which are useful to the city, to the community. So the Sophists, they are just like people who are giving advices to the lawmaker. They are telling to the lawmakers, you should do this law like this because it's useful for the community, for the city. So it's accurate to say that justice is only what the law prescribes, that justice, it is lawfulness, it's just the same. But what is important with the Sophists, even if there is no truth by itself, no justice by itself, the Sophists can advise the lawmaker to make laws which are useful for the city. We, the Sophists, we are just like doctors. We give our patient what is useful to them to improve their health. And so the Sophists are doing with the laws. They are just giving advices to the lawmakers to give laws which are useful for the city, useful for the common good. And this is in what the Sophists are important, and this is why they are entitled to earn a lot of money. So what does it mean, this speeches in the theatres? It means that Protagoras was not was interested in the common good of the city. He didn't think that law must be despised. 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 He didn't think that law but he has a pragmatic point of view. He doesn't believe in the truth by itself, in the justice by itself, but thanks to empirical observation, he can suggest laws which are useful for the city. And this is actually what he did. Because this guy, Protagoras, he was a friend of Pericles. You know Pericles? Pericles? How we say in English, I don't know. Pericles. He was the prominent politic of the 5th century in Athens. And Protagoras was one of his pals, if I can say it like this. Pal, you say in English, yes. One of his pals, and ses potes. One of his friends, if you like better. He was in meetings with this Pericles. Pericles had a wife, a mistress, I would say, who was called Aspasia, who was regarded as a former prostitute. I don't know if it was right. So this Aspasia was clever, intelligent, and she gathered intellectual people around her. And there was Protagoras. It was in these rooms with in his house of Aspasia that Protagoras could come and say that he had no idea about the gods. But he wouldn't say this in the agora, you know, it could be dangerous. Actually, it was dangerous because when the people, the citizens of Athens, heard that Protagoras said that he could not say anything about the gods, they burned his books and he was forced to exile. Then you know that Socrates was condemned to drink the siku, because he was accused, among other things, to not believe in the gods of the city. So this could be dangerous to say that you have no idea about gods. So if Protagoras said this, it appears that he said the sentence, I have no idea about gods, he would have said them in Aspasia lounge, but not on the agora. Now, since this Protagoras was a friend of Pericles, Pericles called him one day and he told him, look, there is a Greek city in the south of Italy, which name is Turoi. And we have to make laws with this city. This is a Greek colony, Athens colony, Turoi. And we have to make laws. So you take a ticket on Ryanair and you fly to South Italy and you're going to give laws to this city. So, no, it was not Ryanair. So he sailed to Turoi, and that's what he made. So he elaborated laws to a real city, which name was Turoi, and to do this, he employed an empirical approach. So he looked what was useful, what was for the common good of the city. And now you can see the difference with Plato later. Plato doesn't propose laws to Athens. In his most famous book, Republic, he is describing what an ideal city should be. An ideal city, what would be the principles of an ideal city, an interval city, which doesn't exist in the empirical world. So you have on one side the Sophists, which are pragmatics, who reject transcendent justice, who don't believe in a truth by itself, whose goal, whose aim is only human condition. And you have on the other side, a little later, Plato, who is defending a model on an ideal city, which should inspire the historical cities. But Plato didn't believe he could make of Athens an ideal city. He didn't try to entangle himself with politics in Athens. He didn't do it because he thought the conditions were not gathered in Athens to lead the city to the model he had imagined in the Republic. He tried to do it in Sicily. So he sailed to Sicily and tried to convince then dictators in Sicily to adopt rules who would be inspired by his model. While Protagoras, he gave real laws to a real city, historical city, which name was Surioi. This is a difference of method. This is a difference of approach. Because on one side, you have somebody, a philosopher, Plato, who believes in justice by itself, in intelligible forms, and he wants to draw empirical reality to intelligible forms. On the other side, you have empirical, I would not say philosophers, but let's say thinkers, like the Sophists, like Protagoras at least, who wanted to watch what are the needs, the empirical needs of a city, and to give laws which are for the common good of the city, not regarding justice by itself or truth by itself. This is a different of approach. But what happened after Protagoras' death, Plato's death, and Aristotle's death? It was what was the tradition which we would be followed. And the Sophists were so so strongly criticized by Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle that they would be forgotten. Or they would be regarded as no real thinkers. So the traditional metaphysic from Plato and Aristotle would have all the fields of the thought in law, and the Sophists were neglected until the 19th century and Hegel. But what's happened? We can present the things in another way. You know, Socrates was condemned to death, and he had to drink this, I don't know the name of English. In English, in French, we say cigou. This is a drink which would kill you. So Socrates was killed. And was killed because of his enemies, and among them Sophists. But the truth is Socrates was the killer, because he killed the Sophists. He didn't kill them physically, but he killed them intellectually. Because we'll see this when we will speak about Socrates. He showed what was wrong in Sophist thought according to his views, and he was one of the cause of the discredit of the thought of the Sophists. So he was killed, but he was the killer. Now, the Sophists deserved, there's another question, of course, the Sophists deserve to be killed or not, or to live. This is a question I cannot answer. Did they deserve to live or not? I mean, intellectually, of course. This is another question. But now I have given you a few words about, I've talked to you a few words about Sophists. You can see this is a very modern thought, because we are in a century of Sophists. Now the Sophists have the place in our modern society, the same place that they had in Athens. We have in France, we are full of Sophists, people who doesn't regard the truth, just give speeches which are supposed to please the people who are listening. So it doesn't mean you must use this after speech in a bad way. As Gorgias explained in the dialogue, in Plato's dialogue Gorgias, I do not answer, I do not respond for the bad use of rhetoric. I teach a skill, this is rhetoric. Now it's up to the disciple to use rhetoric in a good way to achieve good goals, and not to use it in a bad way to make wrong. But this is not my problem. Now we are in a society in which the speeches are what is the most important, because our thought is guided from the medias or television. If you have a guy who says something on television, it doesn't depend if what he says is right or wrong. It depends how he can seduce the people who are listening to him. When we say, for instance, Mélenchon is a great politician. No, he speaks, he has a way of speaking. He's convincing. For people who don't know anything, he's convincing. That's all. And this is now what is politics becoming, because there was no internet or television in the 5th century before Christus, but with the modern way of communications, social media, television, and so on, what you say is becoming more important than truth. Now there is in a fragment which is very famous of Protagoras, which shows that Protagoras thought that the content of the law was important. And this is the myth of Protagoras. A myth, this is a fiction, okay? And this myth is in a dialogue, in Plato dialogue, which title is Protagoras. So, Plato wrote several dialogues about Sophists. One is Gorgias, I told you before in these lectures. The other is Protagoras. So in Protagoras, it's just the same. So Socrates is coming to a house where Protagoras is, and this Protagoras is full of people who are admiring him, around him. And Socrates asks Protagoras why he's so admired, what is his talent, on what is he clever, and so on. But this is not very important. What is important, it is that Protagoras answers that he teaches his disciples the way to govern themselves well, in their home and in the city. He says, I make my disciples good citizens. I teach them the political art. He says, I'm not like the other sophists, who teach a specific knowledge. But because around Protagoras, there are other sophists. We are all here because they want to have they have to have scholars who will pay them. So, and he shows, not with his hand, but with his eyes, other sophists who are there, and he says, on the contrary to others, I'm not teaching a specialized knowledge. I'm teaching the political art. And by political art, I mean the way to be a good citizen, either in its house, in its home, or in the city. And so Socrates asks to Protagoras to explain this. And Protagoras, of course, the sophists, they are always making long speeches. They are making long speeches because they are skilled in the art of speeches. So they give always long speeches. And so Socrates says, I pray you, Protagoras, don't answer me with a long speech. Because, if we are running together, just answer with a few sentences, and not a long speech, because when you start a long speech, and when you come to the end of the speech, I don't remember what you said in the beginning. So Protagoras answers Socrates, hey guy, if I should speak like the others want, I would not be Protagoras. I do as I like. Sorry. But Socrates answers him. He knows how to deal with people, with self-conceited people. He says, look, Protagoras, suppose we are going to run together. And you are a very good runner, and I'm a poor runner. But we want to run together. If you run quickly and you leave me behind, we are not going to run together. So you have to run slower in order we can, more slowly, in order we can run together. So this is just what I ask you. I ask you to give speeches a little shorter in order we can discuss together. Because I have a bad memory. And so at this point, Protagoras says to Socrates, would you mind if I give you in answer a myth? I'm going to raconter, how do you say raconter in English? To tell you a myth, a fairy tale, if you like better, to explain my thought. Would you allow me to give you a tale, a myth, to answer to you? Because you asked me what is political art and why political art is important in the city. I can answer you, but with a myth, with the help of a myth. Do you allow me? Socrates, yes, prochain marzo, I hear you. So this Protagoras starts his very famous myth. This is not a myth of Protagoras, this is a myth of Plato. And what explains Protagoras in this myth, it is myth, we say in English, or myth? Myth? Myth, so myth or myth? Myth. Scheiße, myth. Would be easier to say myth, but myth, this is a little insect in France. He eats clothes.
You understand myth.
So, so he say he gives he tells a myth. He tells a myth. So this myth is the following: Zeus ordered Epimetheus. Epimetheus, this is a half god, a god, I don't remember. Epimetheus. So this guy Epimetheus, it means in Greek, somebody who thinks afterwards. Not very clever, he thinks afterwards. So Zeus told Epimetheus that he must give all the living creature what is needed to survive. So Epimetheus starts his distribution. So he gives teeth to tigers, fur to bears, and so on. And when at the last it comes to human, but he has all distributed. So he has nothing to give to the humans. And they have the problem. He thinks afterwards, you understand? So his brother, Prometheus, says, I'm going to help you. I will give human beings the wisdom in the art and in the fire. I will give the human beings the wisdom in the art on one hand and the fire on the other hand. The fire he had to steal from Hephaestus. And that's why he had problems later. As you might know, Prometheus was chained, and there was a bird who ate his liver. So this was a punishment because he stole the fire from Hephaestus. But even this, with the wisdom in the art and the fire, the human beings couldn't survive because they were making war. They were always in war. So we were threatened to disappear. So Zeus sent another guy whose name is Hermes. And this Hermes gave the human beings justice to every human, justice. And also piety, we say eidos in Greek. So give them, all the human, this justice, and he gave all the human the piety, eidos in Greek. And now, what is the time? Because we have 4 minutes left. That's right. So because I don't go further than 50. Okay. Now, what is the first meaning of a myth? The first meaning, it is that there is a difference between arts and justice. It's not because you are clever and the human being have the art or the techniques that they have the justice. Because this Zeus had to order Hermes to give the man justice because he could not survive only with technique. And this is a lesson for today. We have made huge progresses in techniques. We have smartphones, we have computers, we have all things. And are we wiser? We can see every day this is not the case. So this is the first important conclusion from this myth. It reminds me, you know, the discourse of Rousseau, discours sur les sciences et les arts. This is a work from Rousseau in which he explains that the progress of techniques was not followed by a progress in moral. But Protagoras had already said this in this myth. As a matter of fact, Plato. Now, justice is a separate virtue which is not linked with technique, technology, or other arts. Now, the second lesson we can deduce for this myth, it is that justice, every man has justice. Justice is for everybody, every citizen. Although in Plato's Republic, the justice is only for the philosophers. The philosophers, they know justice. The other, they don't know what is good for them, the other citizens. And therefore, the philosophers must order, they must be the leaders. But for Protagoras, everybody has justice. So what is important in this myth, and I'm finishing with this, it is that Protagoras is not disinterested, is not indifferent to the content of the laws, because he says there is a justice, a pragmatic justice, a sense of the common good of the cities, and this is the aim of the laws. And that's why every citizen was given this justice. So we must educate the citizens to follow the path of the justice, but not a transcendent justice, not an ideal of justice, just a justice which is linked for the common good of the city. And that what means this myth of Protagoras, it means that Protagoras took as something very important that the laws should be edicted, decided for the common good of the city. Now we have stopped for the, it's okay for today, since my English is getting very poor, so we are going to stop now. And we will meet next week if you will be there. So thanks. And I don't forget with the written lectures. So, but for now on, I haven't ended it. It's not good, so I have to correct them. But I endeavor to put them online. I endeavor, I do not promise. I endeavor.